Mr. Silly on the farm. Mr. Silly and his friends had come to help Farmer Plough on the farm. Mr. Silly walked up the path towards the farmhouse. Suddenly, something came rushing towards him. It was Mr. Jelly. He was very frightened. Farmer Plough had given him some bread to feed the geese, but Mr. Jelly thought they were going to eat him instead.
Don't be scared,
said Mr. Silly.
Geese don't eat people, they like ice cream.
Then Mr. Silly saw Mr. Dizzy in the field. He was counting sheep.
1, 2, 6, 4.
Counted Mr. Dizzy. Then one of the sheep moved and Mr. Dizzy lost count. He had to start again. Mr. Silly had an idea.
Why don't you open the gate and count the sheep as they come out?
He said. Soon Mr. Dizzy had counted 6 sheep. They were all running loose in the lane. Farmer Plough was not very pleased.
Oh, what you be doing to my sheep?
In the next field, Mr. Silly found a big bull with a ring round its nose.
What a strange place to wear a ring!
thought Mr. Silly.
Everyone knows that you wear rings on your toes!
Mr. Silly walked up to the bull and said,
Bah, bah!
The bull was a bit annoyed and ran after Mr. Silly. Then Mr. Silly ran away as fast as he could. He did not stop until he was safely on the other side of the hedge. Out of the lane, Mr. Silly met Farmer Plough's men trying to push a tractor.
Why don't you drive it instead?
said Mr. Silly, trying to be helpful. But the men pointed to the front wheels of the tractor. They were stuck in the mud. Just then, Mr. Strong came along the lane. With one hand, he lifted the tractor out of the mud and carried it back to the farm. He was strong. The men were pleased. They almost forgot to thank Mr. Strong.
Good thing I came along.
Next, Mr. Silly went to the hen house. He found Mr. Clumsy helping the farmer's wife collect the eggs. Mr. Clumsy had only 3 eggs in his basket. There were 5 broken eggs on the ground.
Whoops!
said Mr. Clumsy for the 6th time, as another egg slipped out of his hand. The farmer's wife was very cross. So were the hens. They would have to lay almost twice as many eggs the next day. Mr. Silly went along to the pigsty. It was very dirty, so he had to clean it out. Soon, Mr. Silly was dirty as the pigs.
Quack, quack,
said Mr. Silly to a piglet. Said the piglet, and ran away. Mr. Silly picked up a hosepipe. Just then, Mr. Mischief came round the corner and turned on the tap. Whoosh! Water sprayed all over Mr. Silly and the pigsty. Mr. Silly was very wet, and so were the pigs. Later, Mr. Silly helped Farmer Plough bring the cows in for milking.
Does wool come from cows?
asked Mr. Silly.
Oh, don't be silly,
said the farmer.
Milk comes from cows and wool comes from sheep. War!
In the dairy, Mr. Grady was helping the farmer's wife. She was making cream for the top of the milk. Mr. Grady dipped his finger in the cream and licked it. Fresh cream. Ah. The farmer's wife was very cross. She sent Mr. Grady away and asked Mr. Silly to help her instead. At the back of the farmhouse, Mr. Silly found a vegetable garden. Mr. Topsy-Turvy was digging in the soil. It was not very easy because he was holding his spade upside down.
Time sow to the vegetables labour of your...
He means time to sow the vegetables of your labour.
That's what I said. Time to vegetables that of your labour sow.
Mr. Lazy was asleep at the end of a row of cabbages.
Good morning, Mr. Topsy-Turvy!
shouted Mrs. Silly. Try not to wake Mr. Lazy.
Silly morning, Mr. Good,
said Mr. Topsy-Turvy, and went on digging. Mr. Silly went into the orchard. Mr. Tall was picking apples. He was so tall he could reach the apple standing on the ground. Mr. Silly picked a shiny red apple from a branch. He was about to bite it when it walked out of his hand. It was Mr. Small. He had climbed the tree so he would not be trodden on. Mr. Small asked Mr. Silly to put him on the fence.
Phew! Now I won't get squashed or eaten,
said Mr. Small. Farmer Plough had a shop in the farmyard. He used it to sell all the food from the farm. He sold vegetables from the vegetable garden, fruit from the orchard, cream from the dairy, and eggs from the henhouse. Mr. Silly started to chew some things. He found some apples to make soup, and some cream to pour over his roast beef. Then he picked up a carrot.
That is just what I need for cleaning my windows,
said Mr. Silly. At last it was time for Mr. Silly and his friends to go. Farmer Plough looked around at the mess they made. There were still some sheep running loose in the lane. There were broken eggs in the henhouse. The pigsty was flooded, and Mr. Greedy had spoiled the cream by putting his dirty fingers in it.
Don't worry,
said Mr. Silly.
We'll come and help you again tomorrow.
Oh, that's just what I need.